The Accelerator Podcast is here. I'm your host on tap, Monty King, inviting you to leave ordinary in the dust. Every next level of our lives demands a better version of ourselves. Our guest will inspire you to close the gap. What doesn't happen by design happens by default, so the content on tap is created for listeners to learn and grow. Visit us online at whatsontap.tv or find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, tap 5 stars and drop us a review. Hit the notification bell to never miss an episode and share your favorites to help others outrun the status quo. Let's get started. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Accelerator Podcast. I'm your host, Monty King, and today we've got Jayson Cuba on tap. Jayson is a benefits advisor with the Miller Group, and the best way I can explain Jayson is if you take Mr. Miyagi's wisdom and Danny LaRusso's youthfulness and good looks and smash them together, and then drop them in the insurance universe, you would basically have the Karate Kid of employee benefits. And that's how I would describe Jayson. And all the other brokers are just Johnny from Cobra Kai. Like, they're just terrible. So, anyhow, today, Jayson and I, we're going to be talking about how mental health and wellness impacts impacts more than just your insurance rate. But before we get started, Jayson, if you don't mind, in your own words, could you describe to everyone what it is that you do and the results you get?
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me. I've been really excited to do this. And more importantly, thanks for those amazing words. I don't think I've ever been described that way. So my ego is definitely boosted this morning. So I am an employee benefits advisor, and my job is to help develop and deploy strategy around how best to deliver an employee benefits program to an organization and its employees. And in today's world, we have to be having conversations around more than just benefits, right? We need to be talking about the overall well-being of your employees and how that can impact, as you said, more than just your insurance rates. We need to start taking a look at things from an organizational standpoint. So we can't be as siloed as we had been in the past. So that's where I like to play, and that's where we've found a lot of success, and that's more importantly where we've developed a lot of our partnerships.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm excited about this one as well. And again, we're primarily speaking, or we're going to speak today about driving and being over the road and the mental health and wellness for truck drivers. But this could this could apply to any and everyone, no matter what your position in a company is, just the whole labor force across the country. So just so everyone keeps that in mind as well. But yeah, Jayson, so talk to us a little bit more about the mental health and wellness aspect and how you tie that into your insurance programs for the benefit side.
Yeah. So, first let's some numbers, some stats for you. Okay. I mean, mental health and wellness really got kind of shoved into the spotlight during COVID. We were dealing with folks that were in isolation. Really had been cut off from the outside world. I mean, we can video chat all day, right? But we're physical people. We need to touch and hug and laugh with our family and friends. So that really caused a lot of problems for people. So before pandemic, depression had been reported at about 8.5% of the population. And then early pandemic, kind of early into that lockdown stage, we saw those numbers increase to about 27, almost 28%. And then as of April 2001, what had been reported was almost 33% of our American people reported feelings of depression. That's a significant jump in a year's time, or even if you want to say 2 years time. It has affected people in a drastic way. And some employer groups may say, well, hey, what does that do to me? How does that affect my organization? And We can look at this a couple different ways because we're not just talking about the employee themselves. We're talking about their spouses, their partners, their children. I mean, all of us were impacted by this. Excuse me. So if you have if you have an employee who they themselves are struggling or dealing with a mental health issue, depression, right, is the one I just brought up. How difficult is it for that person to even show up for work? Right? Monty, you and I have had plenty of conversations where we talk about a struggling labor force and just struggling to find quality people. Well, what happens if you have a quality person who isn't able to even get out of bed, or maybe they do show up to work, but they're just not in the game, right? So those are the types of conversations that we have to be having, and it's more about how do we help that person. I mean, these are our neighbors, right? They're our friends. It's our dads, it's our moms, it's our kids. How do we help them, and what can you as an employer do to help them rebound as a person, but also get back to a productive state to further propel the mission of the organization?
Yeah, I love that too. The result is to get them to rebound. I love that description. And a lot of times in the transportation industry, the phrase burnout is becoming more and more prevalent. Specifically, driver burnout. On the road, it can be lonely, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes you may not have a lot of opportunity to tell if a driver has anxiety or depression, or is struggling with things, even from diet changes, in their appetite, exercise. I mean, that's all really, really difficult to do. The more you're on the road, and the longer you're on the road.
Yeah, and that's where we really, when we start tying in things like diet or nutrition or financial health or emotional or even spiritual health, right? So, in the past, I'll say, 15 years ago, wellness was, hey, me, the employer, I'm going to give you, the employee, a monthly stipend for a gym. Or we've partnered with these gyms, you're going to get a free gym membership, go work out. And even though we saw results from that, it didn't achieve what we really wanted to achieve, which was a well person, of a complete well person. So we have to start thinking about the person from a holistic point of view, and especially for individuals who spend a lot of time alone on the road, like you had mentioned with truckers. If they're long haul truckers, if they're just payload truckers, they're in a cab by themselves 98% of the time, right? So what do we do as an employer group, again, to deliver resources? Hear me say, I am not a doctor. I'm not a clinician. I'm not a licensed psychologist. My job is not to deliver therapy or solutions for mental health for that particular individual. My job is to give the employer group tools and resources that they can deliver to their employees so that they can find those individuals, so that they can find a licensed dietitian, so that they can find a psychiatrist. If they're struggling with substance abuse, they can find a substance abuse center or a behavioral mental health center to help them deal with those issues. And again, it's not just that individual, it's the people that they touch as well. If my wife is at home and she's struggling with depression, I can guarantee you that me sitting in this chair as an insurance professional, I'm still going to be distracted and worried about my wife at home. I have a high school son right now, and interesting statistic here. 40% of high school students reported persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness. Okay. And an increase of 36% of those high school students seriously considered suicide. If I have a son, my son who is in high school, is a freshman in high school, if he is struggling with mental health, that's where my mind immediately goes. And I can promise you, I'm not worried about the next deal, the next client, the next prospect. I'm worried about my kid. So again, how do we deliver resources to the employee to help their family navigate those challenging times? Right. Again, we have to treat the person. We can't just treat their physical well-being anymore.
So to be able to make an impact on um, an employee benefits program, you actually have to drill down as far as the individual employee and start there to build the foundation to strengthen the overall program. Is that, am I hearing that right?
Yes. Yeah, it's 100% correct. It's interesting. I mean, Monty, you and I sit in a sales coaching class every other Friday, and I've been saying this for the last few years, but my philosophy when I sit down with any group before I start working with them is if you're looking to provide benefits just to check a compliance box, I'm not the broker for you. I cannot do that. I have to partner with companies and people that are there to enrich and enhance the employee's life and their family, because the decisions that we're about to make as a partner are going to have a direct impact on your employee today, tomorrow, for the next 2 years. So I need to have a partner that's invested in their people and helping their people. So you're absolutely right. We have to drill down to the employee and how do we get that employee the help, the resources, the services that they need to be a better person, or to have a better experience with their healthcare program, because we hear it all the time, man, my healthcare sucks. Well, okay, let's start out here, right? Where does it suck? And let's dive in and help you out.
So my question is, does it suck because you don't give a rip about your employees, or does it suck because you don't know what you don't know, right? And I guess
Yeah,
that's what you identify
yeah,
in the process.
yeah. And more times than not, it's an indirect correlation, right? You've got high costs, and so how do we keep our costs down? Well, we're going to shift our contribution. So me as the employer, I'm not going to give as much money to the plan, so my employees are going to have to pay more. Well, and how I did that was I had to reduce the benefit, right? So now my deductible has skyrocketed, my out of pocket has skyrocketed, and my premium as an employee has skyrocketed. So it's it it's managing both things simultaneously. Right now, I'm not a magician. I can't solve everything day one, but we have to have a multi-year plan, and we have to start with wellness. We have to start with pharmacy. Those are the two big components, right? I mean, if we can treat the person and we can get them, low costing drugs, fantastic. But what does that mean for the plan? Well, now the plan, right, is able to save money. We have better experience because we don't have folks that are out, due to illness, that aren't checked into a facility, that aren't in a hospital. So that's helping our experience. And in your world, Monty, if I have a distracted employee who runs off the side of the road, or God forbid is in a terrible accident, what does that do to my work comp? Right? What does that do to my auto rates? I mean, so we have a lot of different ways that we can look at this, and how just the mental piece can impact the insurance program, but also, right, like we talked about, how is it impacting the employee?
So if someone is participating in your multi-year program, they're on track. Um, how how do you show how the needle is getting moved? What's moving the needle, and how do you get the results? What are those results from day
Yeah.
one to year three, year four, year five?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question, because everybody's going to jump to cost, right? Well, my cost went up or my cost went down, whatever it is. That's the first place people look at. I don't look at that. What I look at is employee engagement. So if my wellness program only starts out with 5 people, let's say January 1, because that's a renewal date, starts out with 5 people, but I look back at it midway through the year in June, and I've now have 20 people or 30 people signed up and are actively participating. What that tells me is those first 5 people walked out into the shop. They talked about their experience. They talked about how it helped them, how it helped their wife, how it helped their kids or their husband, whoever. And somebody else heard that message and was like, maybe I ought to take a look at this. And then they started talking about it. And it just kind of blossoms. That's how I gauge the success of a wellness program is, are we seeing increased participation? Because more times than not, man, it's the water cooler talk that gets people going, right?
Yep.
When I come in the office on Monday morning and I'm like, hey man, I went and saw Creed 3 on Friday, and it was a great movie. And then on Wednesday, I've got 5 buddies coming up to me and saying, oh my gosh, I thought it was incredible. That's the kind of impact that one person can have. So again, that's why we have to drill down to the individual employee to drive those results.
How do you present the results in a way that will help control the rate for that the cost, the insurance spend, if you will?
Really good question. So, you and I would use the term cosign narrative. The average, everyday person doesn't know what that is. So we, as your broker, have to tell a story to the underwriter, whether you're on the property and casualty side or the benefit side, right? So we have to tell a story. So part of our job is to take those results, coupled with all of the other data and information that we have on that particular group. We take those results and we go to the underwriter and we tell a story. We say, hey, here's what we're doing from a risk management or a risk mitigation strategy. Here's the results that we've seen from just the wellness program, right? We've caught a pre-diabetic. We actually had to stop a bio screening because somebody had enzymes that would indicate a heart attack. We were able to identify chronic conditions that otherwise had gone untreated. So we've helped save the plan X amount of money, or we've helped head off these, potential spike or event claims, right? So the way I like to think of it is, Monty, you and I, right, as we're growing up, and everybody out there as you're growing up, we all did this. You want your friend to stay the night, but you know that if you were to go ask your mom, hey, can Billy stay the night? She's gonna shut it down. Absolutely not. I don't want Billy at my house till 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning. You guys are gonna be up late. So me, right, the slick kid that I am, gonna go to Billy and be like, hey man, I want you to talk to my mom, and here's what I want you to say, and I want you to ask her to stay the night, because my mom's not gonna deny Billy. She'll deny me, but she's not gonna shoot down Billy. It's the exact same thing. Me as the employer group, it's difficult to go to the carrier or the underwriter and ask for rate reductions or for rate relief or to tell that story. So that's why we partner with brokers, right? That's why you and I are Billy, and we go ask the carrier and the TPA, and we go tell that story and say, hey, this is why we want to stay the night. Hey, this is why we need the rate relief. This is why we need the reduction. Here's all of the strategies that we've put in place to help manage the program better.
That's because mom or dad, the last thing they want to do is hurt your friend's feelings.
Exactly.
Because then their parents
Exactly.
are going to become aware, and it's just going to be a nightmare. So yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I would love to have you back again, and maybe we can dig a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah.
But I want to enter into a session that I call the TAP 5.
Okay.
And this is where, in one word or one sentence, I ask you 5 different questions, and you respond to whatever first comes to your mind.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
Okay.
so get ready. No.
I'm ready.
So we'll start out with some easy ones first, all right? So what is the worst employee benefits advice that you have ever heard or received?
Oh boy. Um, the worst advice I've heard or received. I would have to say that the employees, that if their deductible or their out of pocket increases, it's not going to matter. Doesn't matter to the employee. And again, right, I always go back to, my job is to help the employee experience, and unfortunately there are times where that's necessary, but when I'm sitting across from a prospect, which this was, and they're preemptively telling me I'm going to raise the deductible and the out-of-pocket max because it's not going to matter to the employee, that's a red flag to me. That has to be the worst advice that I've actually witnessed, from an employee or an employer, an owner of the business.
Wow. Okay, so the second one is like it, but what is the best advice you've ever heard or received regarding employee benefits?
So it wasn't necessarily advice. It was actually the call I was on right before this meeting. I have a new partner, a new group down in Florida. Great company. They're in the foster care space. Love the work that they do. And so we had our team kickoff call, and I introduce our team. We meet more members of their team, and the engagement from them, the passion really came through on that call. And that to me was amazing, because I sit on these kickoff calls often, and I'm not saying that they're not interested or passionate, but there's no life, there's no passion in it, right? It's just like, here's what we've done, here's our expectations. Like, they were so concerned about the well-being of their employee. I ate it up. I loved it. I told him, I stopped the meeting. I was like, I love this. I love the engagement. I love the participation. You guys are because you're in this mindset, you're going to do well with your program. So that's a great experience, not advice necessarily.
No, that's fantastic because it makes all the difference.
It does.
Across the board, so that's great. All right, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Who did you see for your first ever live concert?
Rascal Flatts.
What?
I was, yeah. So I went to school at K-State, Go Cats, and in Manhattan every summer there's a big festival called Country Stampede. Like the whole town of Manhattan, the whole city of Manhattan descends on this festival. And so I went out, I think it was Friday, spent the day in the camps, doing what college kids do. And my fiance at the time, my ex, my boys' mom, she drugged me to the Rascal Flatts concert because she loved Rascal Flatts. So that was the first concert I'd ever been to. So yeah.
So what's your favorite Rascal Flatts song? Is there one out there, or?
There's one, and it's not because I love the song or anything like that. It's because it's the only song that when we played it, my oldest would stop crying when he was a baby, and that was "God Bless the Broken Roads." So that kind of gives you an insight into what his mom was listening to while she was pregnant with him. Huge Rascal Flatts fan at that point in time.
Nice. Okay, so number 4, what is your hidden talent?
Hidden talent. Man, I don't know if I have any hidden talents. I don't know. I have a really good knack for embarrassing myself. I'm usually not afraid to put myself out there, even in embarrassing situations. It may not be a talent, but I'm pretty good at it.
Nice. All right, we'll go with that. All right, so the last one, and probably the most heavy, and I'm not saying there's a wrong answer, but there's a best answer. I'll say that.
Okay.
But who is the greatest professional wrestler of all time?
Ooh. Oh man, all time. Oh, that's a good question, man. I'm gonna say in my childhood growing up, I loved Goldberg. Goldberg was my man. I loved like just a big jack dude when I was a kid. Muscular. The spear was awesome. I loved Goldberg. That was my idol when I was a kid.
So give me your best Goldberg impression.
I'm bald. Isn't that close enough?
For some reason, I thought that's what you were going to say. That is awesome. Oh man! Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't know if you were going to show us your abs or not. But I'm just kidding.
Oh, those disappeared a long time ago.
He was so solid. He had abs on top of abs.
He sure did. And traps, massive traps.
Yes. Awesome, man. Well, listen, tell all of our listeners and viewers how they can get in touch with you, and let's give them an opportunity to reach out if they've got questions or want to continue the conversation before I can have you back on for another show.
Absolutely. I would love to talk to anybody who has questions or concerns or wants to learn more about mental health or just their program in general. You can reach me at my desk, which the area code is 816-308-4556. If you would rather correspond via email, my email address is Jayson, JAYSONC @millercares.com.
Awesome. And you're on LinkedIn as well, right?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I mean, you can Google me. I'll show up somewhere.
Awesome. Man, I definitely enjoyed it. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to having you again.
Thanks, Monty. I really appreciate being here. It was great to speak with you today, and would love to come back.
Awesome.